Namaskar and welcome to NFL Masala. I'm your co-host Anant.
And I'm your other co-host, Rakshak. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 9 of NFL Masala, where we talk about all the latest happenings in the NFL with a little bit of spice.
So today is going to be our first AFC division breakdown, but it's not going to be the most exciting. It's going to be an easy one, an easy pitch, a slot ball for you cricket fans out there, something that you can just smack a 6-4, and that's AFC West division.
Or even better for any baseball fans that are finally getting back into gear with the Olympics being concluded. Basically, it is a free hit. Basically, it's one of those easy walk-ons where you take where you go to first base.
Yeah, you just get a walk-off grand slam home run and you just end the game. That's the AFC West. And the reason why is I think we both agree the Chiefs are there. They are inevitable. They are Thanos of the NFL. They will win.
Yeah. You know, like the guy where he says, like, I'm inevitable. That's pretty much.
Yeah, they are Thanos.
Yeah.
So there's zero chance. I'm saying it right now. Zero chance that any other team in this division is going to get the division title. It's going to be the Chiefs.
Yep.
By default.
We could literally just end the episode right here and say, hey, Chiefs, right, just move on. But then again, in order for the audience to know who we're talking about, we got to go into detail. But before
we have to be just and fair.
You have to be fair. But before we begin, I would like to say, for those that watch the Paris 2024 games, definitely a lot of fun. Congratulations to the United States and of course the Indian athletes for performing.
Oh, USA, man. Let's go.
Yeah. And of course,
everybody else's patriotism might be out, but I'm 100% in. Let's go.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, definitely it was. I mean, of course, there was like a lot of great games involved, especially with basketball, swimming, beating Australia. It's basically the old. And then of course, I mean, and of course, people are going to critique me about this, but me as a beginner level breakdancer, I was happy to see breaking in the Paris 2024 games. Of course, people are going to be complaining about that Australian dancer, aka Ray Gun, who had an interesting freestyle in that cipher against.
It wasn't good. I'm sorry. It was not entertaining to watch.
I mean, like, of course, people have own difference because some of them, they haven't fully experienced what true breaking is unless you go deeper and deeper into it. But for me, beginner level, I'm just happy to see hip hop there. And then, of course, for LA 2028 coming, I mean, I've already started, like, I think I may have, like, riled up some controversy on Instagram if you have looked at my stories. Yeah. Anand probably knows. And if anyone wants to come at me, y'all know where to find me. At Rack the Great 92. Let's get it, y'all. But with that, let's talk with, and of course, sending our love to Jordan Childs after this injustice with Romania and the USA gymnastics thing. I mean, it's just dirty. Just give both girls a medal. Give both the bronze.
Nah, bro, USA for the win.
We
get the bronze. Ain't nobody get to share.
There goes the Romanian audience.
Yeah, too bad. Too bad, so sad. You have what, like 20 million people in your country? Fine. I don't care.
It's him saying this, not me.
American number one. All right. Let's move on to NFL stuff. First bit of news. Before we get into the AFC West division preview, we got to talk about some NFL news, some Dhamakadar news, and the fact that the first week of preseason is officially done and dusted. So we've seen all of the rookie QBs have their performances. For the most part, all of them actually performed pretty well. I mean, you look at, they obviously had some rust, so they did have some bad plays. But all in all, like, all the rookie QBs were pretty consistently good. Except for Drake May, because he got one drive. For some reason, the Patriots are like, nah, we're going to give Joe Milton the chance. And he was good.
Yeah. And
But
speaking of Patriots, they're actually in mini camp, have a joint mini camp with the Eagles right now.
ooh, okay.
And from what I've heard, according to announcer Elliot Shore Parks, I still have a
Mhm.
grudge with him because he was one of the people that was spreading false rumors about Deshaun Jackson back then. I mean,
Ah,
but I think like Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy explained about it in their show, the 2510 show or something like that. But yeah, it's pretty dope. Check it out. But yeah, I think like from what I've heard, like Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense have been doing pretty good. Eagles defense had themselves a day. And yeah, I mean, like then again, these are just initial looks. Not people are going to be revealing all their cards.
hmm Yeah, I would be surprised if they even go through like 10% of the playbook at this point. Right? It's gonna be during the week or during the regular season where we see the true offenses and defenses.
And
So,
a little bit of spoiler warning, I did hear from Lane Johnson, Eagles future Hall of Famer right tackle. He did mention that, oh, by the way, we could have another another version of the tush push coming in.
oh
So
my God, give me a break.
and for those that are like clowning upon it, and you know who I'm referring to, Anand, your team is officially cursed. The Rockstar
Alrighty,
back, baby. Don't piss me off. That's all I can say.
alrighty. Let's get started with the first bit of news. This I've never heard of this ever happening before. Um, Unfortunately for the Carolina Panthers, their while they were taking off after their first preseason game, lost to the New England Patriots 17-3. That flight ran off the taxiway.
What?
Yeah, it just nobody was injured, thank God. Nobody was injured, but it seemed that um the aircraft was towed out of the movement area after 5:30 p.m. and the taxiway was reopened at 6:30 p.m. And what had happened is the right main gear exited the taxiway following a normal arrival. No injuries were reported, and it just seemed like when they landed, they just went off the road. I don't think I've ever heard of this type of news before. Just a plane going off the taxiway, and it was carrying all the Carolina Panthers.
Oh my goodness.
Thank goodness something bad didn't happen, but wow.
Thank goodness they're all safe. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I will say.
What a
And
news item to start the episode.
yeah, and speaking of big news, we do have some sad news, especially injuries. You don't like saying this, but this is regarding an NFC North team. So this is actually recent. And again, we gotta thank our man on the field, Mr. Abhishek Ramani.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, he's been like on point, man.
E Insider.
Yes, the NFL Masala insider. So with that, the Minnesota, and according to his multiple sources, Ari Mayroff, Abhishek Ramani, Ian Rappaport, and yes, even Adam Schefter, these are going to be the big four now. The Minnesota Vikings quarterback JJ McCarthy, had to go in for surgery that could literally cost him part or all of his rookie season. And even though he had like a good preseason debut, 24-23 win over the Raiders, he had to undergo surgery this week, according to coach Kevin O'Connell, and it was a torn meniscus in his right knee. And apparently what happened was, I think like he tried to hand over the ball or something like that, from what I've understood. And apparently it didn't look good. They had to do a couple of x-rays, and
Yikes.
and based on what I've looked at, torn meniscus, which is like recovery time is typically 6 to 9 months, depending upon the activities on the patient. So,
but also it's going to significantly hinder his development path
yeah, I mean,
because
because
he's the one who needs the most.
yeah, and for those, and so basically, we're looking at he's basically done for the season.
He's done for the season. That means next year, if they are trying to look for him being the starter next year,
It's gonna be very
good luck. See, all I have to say, Rakshak, all I have to say about this is what happens, Vikings fans. Listen up. This is what happens when you support the team of the devil. All right. Your players get injured. The curse is real. You make a deal with the devil strikes back, and this is what happens. Enjoy your misery.
I mean, but I'm gonna say this: get well, JJ McCarthy.
Yes.
We want to see you excel as a player, but it's just rough. You know that meme from Avatar: The Last Airbender? Zuko's like, "That's rough, buddy." That's all I could say. Yeah. It sucks. It's very unfortunate.
It is. And he was actually the one who looked the most explosive. At least for some people, he, along with Caleb Williams, looked like the most explosive quarterbacks in the preseason showdown that we had in the first week. And it is unfortunate that he has had to have his development being stunted because of this massive injury. Like, he can't play in preseason games now. He can't he can't even participate in training camp, really, in training camp drills, or even with like practices. He can't do that. So he's going to have to be a sponge of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Just get all the knowledge he possibly can and try and be mentally fit while his body recovers. It's not like, unfortunately, it's not like it was his left hand, or like non-dominant hand, non-throwing hand, or his non-throwing leg or something like that. It's literally his right leg. So
That sucks.
yeah. Alrighty. Let's move on now to the preseason games. Starting with the Packers. I think we were the first I think we were on the first slate of games versus the Browns on Saturday. Oh, no. This is the 325. So we were in the second slate. So yeah, Packers played the Browns. Nothing but positive news. Literally nothing but positive news from that game. We whooped them 23-10. Yes, this is the preseason, but still, the Browns have a pretty good roster. So we're going to have a lot of NFL caliber players there that we had to play against. And the number ones from the Packers offense and defense, but specifically from the Packers offense, the third play of the first drive of the game was a 65-yard bomb.
To who?
Touchdown. Dontavion Wicks.
Nice.
So Jordan Love is back. He is here. He is way better than Jalen Hurts. He's a top 5 QB. He will win the MVP this year. He will also win the Super Bowl MVP. It is written. He is Lisan Al-Gaib. He is our savior. He will take us to the Super Bowl.
Did you just pull a Dune reference?
Yes.
Oh my God.
He is our Messiah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we may have to end this episode prematurely because this guy has been spouting heresy for the last
Okay. Let's see. He's going to be the best QB this year, and I'm all here for it. All right. This is what Jordan Love's stat line was. It was 2 of 2 for 63 yards and a touchdown. And that was his entire game. The first pass was a 1-yard screen pass loss to Josh Jacobs. Right? It was just a little swing pass out to the right side. And the next throw was a 65-yard throw. Well, he didn't throw it 65 yards. He threw it like 35 yards in the air. But still, it was a fantastic, just awesome. Just awesome. And that was the only drive for the Packers' number one offense. And it also looks like Dontavion Wicks is going to be our top two receivers.
Ooh.
Because he has been,
Dontavion Wicks and Christian Watson?
Yeah. He's been making a lot of moves during the offseason, especially in training camp. And he had shown a lot of promise at the end of the last season as well because of his get-off ability. A lot of our Packer fan base were comparing his breakability from and jukes and all of that when you have to get off the line, right, as a receiver and you have to make your first move. It looks a lot like Devontae Adams. So he has that potential, right? So for us, I think this year 2 is going to be huge for him. He's already had a fantastic connection from Jordan Love, as we saw in this preseason game. So he's making moves, and it looks like he's going to be top 2 receiver, competing with Watson for wide receiver 1 reps. Because right now Christian Watson is still our number 1 receiver, despite what Matt LaFleur says. Matt LaFleur quote said, I'm going to throw up if you guys say anything more about we don't have a number 1 receiver or anything like that, or who our number 1 receiver is. It's all your stuff. We have like a bunch of guys who are number 1 receivers. And it's true. We do. Jaden Reed could be a number 1 receiver in like half the offenses in the entire league, right? Dontavion Wicks could be a number 1 receiver. Christian Watson is already a number 1 receiver. So that was very exciting to watch. The O-line was okay, and that was because we didn't have a lot of our starters there. Zach Tom was injured or is coming off of injury. And Jordan Morgan also didn't play, who's our first-round selection. And Andre Dillard came in as a right tackle, starting right tackle, and as a backup left tackle. So that basically shows that it was our depth that played. It wasn't that bad. They didn't really let up anything. In terms of running backs, unfortunately, Marshawn Lloyd, who was our 3rd-round draft pick, had 1 rush and is out with a hamstring injury. So we don't know for how long. It may be for a couple weeks. They did say he's week to week. So it looks like Emmanuel Wilson is going to be RB3 and potentially RB2 in replacement of the Aaron Jones role. See, Josh Jacobs is going to be our 3-down back, right? He's going to be that. He's going to be the red zone back. But in terms of change of pace, Josh Jacobs is not the fastest guy. So that's going to be Emmanuel Wilson. And he really showed that. He had, I think, 13 rushes for like 67 yards or something like that. A really, really positive rushing performance for Emmanuel Wilson. And he was making moves as well. It's not like he just had wide open holes to go through. He was making cuts. He was making jukes. And he was in a diversity of runs, whether it was inside zone or outside zone, whether it was due up the middle. It was really refreshing to see the variability and the variety that Emmanuel Wilson had and showed in this game. So that's good to see. But the biggest story for us is going to be our defense. And with Jeff Hafley coming in, we were all thinking it was going to be, cover 1, man coverage, right? And for the most part, it kind of was, though he did mix in a lot of cover 2 as well, and some cover 3, especially towards the end with all of our backups in, just to test all of our safeties. But mostly it was, cover 1, single high safety, a lot of press man coverage, a lot of aggressiveness from the D-line, which is exactly what we've been wanting to see from Joe Barry. right? We wanted to see our D line be aggressive and getting after the quarterback, mauling that offensive line, which is a good offensive line for the Browns, by the way. It's not like it's the Panthers or something like that. It's a good offensive line, coached by really good. It was coached by one of the greatest offensive line coaches of all time in Bill Callahan. He's now elsewhere, but it is still a really, really good offensive line with a lot of depth, and we just ate them up. All right. Devontae Wyatt and Lucas Van Ness. Special shout out to those two guys. I think Wyatt is entering year 3 and Lucas Van Ness is entering year 2. And they were both spectacular. Devontae Wyatt, not so much in the stat sheet, but he showed up on the game film with significant pressures in a lot of the pass plays, and you could really see, including one of the sacks that Van Ness had was because of pressure provided by Devontae Wyatt up the middle. Because he was able to collapse the pocket so quickly, Lucas Van Ness was able to swing in from the other side and complete that sack. And Lucas Van Ness showed up more on the stat sheet, had 3 total tackles, a sack, 3 TFLs. So he really showed up there. We had, I think, 3 total sacks, 4 total TFLs, constantly in the backfield. Really strong run defense performance as well. So a lot of positives from this defensive output. And special shout out, Evan Williams, rookie safety, 5th round pick, forced a fumble, and I believe recovered it, or it was recovered by someone else. And this wasn't a wide receiver holding it loose, and then Evan Williams bumped into him and then actually got the ball or something like that. It wasn't that type of forced fumble. It was strip sack type of fumble. It wasn't a strip sack, but he did strip the wide receiver of the football while running route. So great performance by him. This is exactly what we wanted from Jeff Hafley. Strong, intimidating defensive line, aggressive corners and secondary who are going to get in those wide receivers' faces. And yes, some of our depth did allow for some easy completions and man coverage. But again, that is our depth. We didn't have Jair Alexander starting. We didn't have Carrington Valentine starting. We had Keyshawn Nixon and Corey Ballantyne starting as our starting corner and nickel corners. You also had Eric Stokes, and he also performed pretty well. He didn't do that bad. Javon Bullard was fantastic for us. He is what he was billed out to be, a strong safety who's going to come in and lay the wood. All right. So he's going to be a constant threat for offenses to deal with. And he really showed that. So this is exactly what we wanted to see. Strong secondary, aggressive defensive line, agile, aggressive linebackers, and the inclination to not give a shit when it came to assassinating offensive players. So with that mentality I think it's a really good performance for the Packers defense, and I'm excited to see how we perform in the regular season.
Nice, very nicely done. Yeah. So with that being said, let's move on to the Eagles this time. There was a game on Saturday evening, and I only caught until some bits of it until the end. And apparently, the Eagles actually had, and with that, the Eagles went and they beat the Baltimore Ravens 16-13. It was actually a pretty close game. So we all know the rumor. We heard the rumors and through the grapevine that they're gonna play their starters so they could show what Jalen Hurts can do in a Kellen Moore type of offense. Well, guess what? Nope, not the case. Instead, they go with Kenny Pickett and a mix of the second string, third string offense. And with Kenny Pickett, it's more going to be. I think he was all right. Had 14 for 22, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. And it was more of a dink and dunk kind of play. He played the entire first half, plus 1 series in the second half. He did have 0 interceptions. So basically, according to Warren Sharp on Twitter, Kenny Pickett had dropped back to pass 23 times in the first half. He only threw the ball for more than 10 air yards in just 4 times, which was 0 for 4. And then Tanner McKee went 6 for 16, but didn't get help much from his receivers as well. And the quarterbacks, they didn't separate from the other in their battle for QB2 jobs. So basically, Jalen Hurts had himself like a rest day, and he just watched, probably had some Gatorade, helped out with some coaching. I don't know, something like that. And yes, we did see the brotherly shove. And apparently there's been like some recent report from Mike Florio, of Pro Football Talk. He say that the league decided that it doesn't want multiple guys aligned in or near the A gap immediately pushing on the quarterback after the snap. If they're going to push at the snap, they need to start to play clearly in the backfield. So, but with that, the Eagles ran the brotherly shove, and there was no flag. So, I mean, unless it happens in the regular season, that report's wrong. What I did like was that one of the Eagles late round picks in Will Shipley, running back from Clemson, he actually had some really good night. He had a really nice blitz pickup on a Kenny Pickett toss to John Ross, and he did have a touchdown, 7 carries, and I mean that's like really really. I mean, of course, he's been good as a pass catcher, but according to rumors in training camp, he has struggled in pass protection. If he was able to pull that off, that's going to be good. And I mean, and then we have to talk about this. Anais Smith. I mean, he didn't look that impressive from what I've been hearing. And from what I've heard, he also nearly fumbled the ball. So during one of the plays. So there's a possibility of him getting cut along with John Ross. And this could be a position that they have to focus, that the Eagles may have to take a look at, the wide receiver 3 spot. I mean, I get that with the AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. That's basically Kobe and Shaq and Kobe. But
what about Johnny Wilson?
Yeah, speaking of Johnny Wilson, he made some good plays. He only had like a target. He only had a reception for 7 yards, but he was very good in pass blocking. So that's very encouraging to see. And from what I've heard in training camp, he's been like towering over a couple of receivers and making those actual jump catch passes.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly the Eagles can use him as a red zone threat, which most likely will be the case. But wide receiver 3, I think the Eagles should try and look for targets like Noah Brown, Noah Brown from the Texans, maybe Hunter Renfrow, but definitely not Brandon Ayuk, because Ayuk definitely wants more money. Let him be on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the defense, I was very encouraged by it. Quinyon Mitchell, in one of the very first series of the game against the Ravens, he nearly had a pick. He nearly had a pick 6. But man, he has been balling out. Apparently, he has been jawing or running his mouth against AJ Brown and Devontae. And the battles have been fun. And Jalen Hurts has yet to throw a pick in the preseason. Apparently that's what people wanting to know about it. I'm like, okay, it's there.
See, that's what I'm saying. Your expectation for Jalen Hurts in the preseason is, oh, please don't throw a pick. Please don't throw a pick.
Because
our expectation for Jordan Love is just go out there, have fun. We know you're good. You don't need to prove anything.
But I'm not done yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with Quinyon Mitchell, I was very excited to see him play, and then of course Keely Ringo had a couple of pass breakups too. So you're probably looking at the future of this young Eagles secondary after Darius Slay and James Bradbury, aka Trashberry, is gone.
Mhm.
And luckily we just got news today that Cooper DeJean has been activated, so he may most
That's
likely
nice.
play on for preseason week 3 just to see
Gotcha.
what he can do. But it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And Devin White had some good snaps. I mean, he had 2 total tackles in the game, one solo, and then and apparently Nolan Smith had himself a game. 4 total, 4 total tackles,
Mhm.
1 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, and a QB hit.
Ooh.
But the biggest story of them all, other than Ben Van Sumeren, backup linebacker, probably practice squad, but the legend that everyone is going to be fearing, the prodigal son,
Oh my God.
Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the Axeman Jr., son of Eagles legendary linebacker Jeremiah Trotter.
Mhm.
He had himself a game. 6 tackles, 1 sack, 1 QB hit.
Ooh, nice.
Oh my God! You see him
That's good.
coming off the edge, dude. There have been reports that he's taking over N'Kobe Dean's spot,
Ooh, wow. As a
and
rookie.
N'Kobe Dean is apparently he actually made some plays today against the Patriots, like during the training camp battles. But I'm like, this is what I want to see,
Mhm.
and
Actual
apparently.
competition in the linebacking spot.
Oh yeah, because apparently, like with linebackers being the big asterisks, and Devin White having himself some some
Mhm.
great days, and Vic Fangio like helping, actually like adding him into like the proper scheme fit. Like White has been getting in there, so this is what I really like to see.
Nice.
I mean, this game apparently went to the haywire. Jake Elliott he doinked a game-winning field goal, and he doinked an extra point against the Ravens. So it's 13-13. Ravens next play, Josh Johnson gets strip sacked by Patrick Johnson, a la Brandon Graham. Come from behind, strip sacks, gets recovered. Jake Elliott redeems himself with the kicker. With a
Mhm.
field goal, they win 16-13. I mean, all I could say is that Kellen Moore is trying his best not to show his hand early, which is good. And then but the defense, this young Eagles squad, oh boy, I can't wait to see them play, man. I cannot
Mhm.
wait to see them play. And I mean, I'm happy, but that was not the only news regarding Eagles. You want to know what happened?
Say less.
We all know what happened in the Jets.
Aha. Aha. Yes.
So
Uh,
with that, I think like we have to take a look back. It's regarding a player that we all know very well, Edge Hassan Reddick. Apparently, there's been a standoff. And we didn't know this until now, but after the Eagles traded Hassan Reddick to the Jets because he wanted to get paid, rightfully so, the Jets didn't get a contract ready for him. They didn't. And what has he done? On Monday, according to Adam Schefter and other NFL sources, he has asked for a trade. He's asked for a trade back. No, like
yikes.
he's asked for a trade completely. I don't get it. What is going on? And I get that he wants his money. And the Jets have fired back immediately with a strongly worded statement. And this is according to Joe Douglas. We have informed Hassan that we will not trade him. He's expected to be here with his teammates, and he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report. Since the trade discussions back in March, we have been clear, direct, and consistent with our position. Our focus will remain on the guys we have here as we prepare for the regular season. And for a little bit of context, he has missed 21 days of training camp, including a mandatory $50K fine per day. All told, Counting fines and lost bonus money from an offseason bonus, the holdout is costing him $1.7 million. I mean, the guy hasn't even practiced a single day with the Jets. He's only stepped once in their facility, only for the physical and the introductory news conference on April Fool's Day. I don't know, like, if the way that Howie Roseman made that trade, man. I think from the looks of it, I think Howie Roseman may have dodged a bullet. I honestly think that way.
Yeah, that's it's rough because Hassan Reddick was supposed to be, a really key part of their defensive scheme, right, for the Jets, especially in terms of their pass rush plans. But now, if he's holding out like this, it's a bad look. And then you also have Aaron Rodgers coming in and saying, oh, it'd be really nice to have Hassan Reddick back. We're gonna have a nice ride. So I don't know what to believe here at this point. All right, so that's going to be it for us in terms of the Makadar news segment. And now we're going to actually get to the real reason why we are recording today, and that is to break down the AFC West division. So let's get started with the last year's worst team in the division, the Chargers. Surprisingly, the Chargers. And that was because the defensive mastermind known as Brandon Staley allowed 63 points to be scored by a Raiders offense commanded by Aiden O'Connell. Zach, how do you describe a defensive performance of this magnitude?
I don't know. I have no words.
It's not like it was a 70 burger by the Denver Broncos against the Miami Dolphins in week 3. At least the Miami Dolphins have offensive talent. The Raiders have nobody except Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. And they allowed 63 points at the end of the season. And it was so ridiculous that there was a meme where Austin Eckler got a first down and he was celebrating the first down by being down 63-7. That's how bad the Chargers were last year. You don't need to know about any stats. You don't need to know about anything other than that one fact. That's all you need to know about how bad the Chargers were, allowing 63 points to a Raiders team that had just lost to a Vikings team where the entire score was 3-0. A soccer match. So, yeah, that's all you needed to know about the Chargers. Now, I will say that season last year did birth another meme. And for YouTube people, I am going to show you guys what that meme is. Unfortunately, for our audio listeners, I'm going to try and explain. But yes, it is the crazy lady. It is the crazy Asian fan lady who is, now the mascot for all Chargers fans. This was on a Monday night game that the Chargers had. And as you guys can see, she's ecstatic being a Chargers fan. And that's the level of commitment Chargers fans still have. Despite all the ups and downs that they've had to face, despite all the curses that they've had to go through, despite the fact that they were the mockery, they were the victim of the injury bug year in, year out.
They were jokes.
They were joke. But now they are out of it. And I'll tell you guys why. Starting with who they brought in. Not a lot of well-known players, huh?
Let's get to it.
So not a lot of well-known players. This offseason wasn't really for their personnel refresh. They did bring in Will Dissly, who's a good tight end. Has got some receiving chops, but is a little bit of a blocking tight end as well. So he's going to be their inline tight end. I believe they have another tight end who is going to be their main guy in terms of blocking. And let me see if I can pull out this name. Yeah, Hayden Hurst. So yeah, Hayden Hurst is going to be their blocking tight end. Will Disley and Donald Parham Jr. are going to be their receiving ones, typically, you know, in the Y position. And with the scheme that has been brought in, it's going to be, you know, a lot of 12, 22 personnel, two tight end sets. So we're going to see some pretty healthy action of Will Disley. They also got Gus the Bus Edwards from Baltimore, along with J.K. Dobbins. Both of them on cheap contracts. Gus the Bus on a 2-year, $6.5 million contract, and J.K. Dobbins on a 1-year, $1 million contract, $1.5 million contract. They also brought in Bud Dupree, who, you know, 3 years ago was in his prime, but now can be seen as like a rotational edge rusher from the Falcons on a 2-year, $6 million deal. Yeah, that's how you know just how, you know, how much past his prime Bud Dupree actually is. Christian Fulton from corner from Tennessee on a 1-year, $3 million prove it deal. He's only 26 years old, so we'll see if he can succeed. Another underrated signing for them, especially considering their wide receiver depth, DJ Chark Jr. from Carolina. It didn't go well for him there. He had flashes of being a wide receiver 2 in Jacksonville 3 years ago. Unfortunately, he hasn't really lived up to the hype. He hasn't been really consistent. So he's here on a 1-year, $3 million prove it deal. Denzel Perryman, linebacker, depth, 1-year, $2 million deal, along with Troy Dye. Again, in terms of linebacker depth, Puna Ford, D tackle depth from Buffalo, and then previously from Seattle, and obviously Hayden Hurst and Bradley Bozeman to round out their veteran signings. They also retained Alohi Gilman, who is a good free safety for them. You know, not a top 10 by safety by any means or any stretch, but someone who is serviceable for them in that role. I don't really know what sort of defense we're going to see, especially with the what I'm going to talk about. But he's going to provide a good coverage role for them on a 2-year, $10 million deal, along with Easton Stick being retained as backup QB. Now, the big unfortunate news for the Chargers is they lost a ton of talent, a ton of veteran, big name talent for them. Kenneth Murray, gone to Tennessee. Gerald Everett, tight end, gone to Chicago. Mike Williams, gone to the Jets. Austin Eckler, gone to the Commanders. Austin Johnson, D tackle. They lost him. Michael Davis is a pretty well known. He goes to Commanders. Eric Kendricks, the famous Eric Kendricks for the Dallas Cowboys. He's going to go there, 32 years old, linebacker. And then you have obviously the biggest loss for them in a trade, Keenan Allen. And that is basically their top 2 wide receivers just gone in the same offseason. And the reason why is they had to get rid of a lot of that negative cap hit, that massive cap hit, and get younger. And that's exactly what they did. Now the oldest player on their offense is like Bradley Bozeman, who's their starting center. He's like 30 years old or something. Is he? Yes, 30 years old. So if you look at all the young talent that they now have, you have Justin Herbert, who's like 25, 26, Josh Palmer, who is 24 years old. He is in his 4th year now, he's going into his 4th year. You got Lad McConkey, rookie. We'll talk about that. DJ Chark, he's a little bit on the older side. He's like 28, so not really. Will Disley, he's like 28 years old. But if you look at their offensive line, that is, I think, their strong suit. You got Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, Trey Pipkins. They're all young. And then obviously their selection, their number one overall, or not number one, first round pick, Joe Alt. So before we go further into their depth chart, let's talk about what happened regarding their coaches. So we know the defensive mastermind known as Brandon Staley was ejected from this role, and so did basically everybody on his staff. I believe Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator, is now on the Eagles. Their defensive coordinator also left. And who did they decide to bring in? One, Mr. Jim Harbaugh,
Welcome back.
Michigan head coach. Welcome back, sir.
And I'm giving you a toast via water.
Yes, sir. Sparkling water from me. But yes, so he comes back now for his, I don't know, 20th coaching season. Yeah, he's a legend. He's a legend of the NFL, of the modern day NFL league. We already remember him from his 49ers role when they went to the Super Bowl in 2013.
The
On the backs of
Harbaugh,
Colin Kaepernick.
his brother, John Harbaugh.
Yep, lost to his brother after eviscerating the Packers in the postseason that year. I'll always remember that because I was in India that time, so I couldn't actually watch the game. But I was like, okay, glad I did not watch this game. I didn't want to see Colin Kaepernick run for like 200 yards on us. So yeah, he's coming back from a long time coaching in the college football realm, and then obviously this past year he brought Michigan Wolverines their first national championship in a long time. So kudos to him. And in terms of the assistants that he did bring in, their offensive coordinator now is going to be Greg Roman.
Oh,
Greg Roman as their offensive coordinator. And you guys remember if 2-3 years ago, he was the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. And especially he was the offensive coordinator for the first MVP campaign of Lamar Jackson in 2019.
Oh, that's a good hire.
Well,
in this case.
Well, we don't know, because the reason why Greg Roman was ousted from the Baltimore Ravens was because his inability to create a consistent passing game, to call a consistent passing game, was the main reason why he was let go from Baltimore, right? After 6 years, from 2016 to 2022, of being in that one position, he was let go. But Jim Harbaugh believes that he's going to bring some of his magic back. We'll see. Justin Herbert is definitely not the same type of quarterback that Lamar Jackson was, or is currently, right? Justin Herbert does not have the same rushing ability, obviously, as Lamar Jackson. So we'll see exactly what type of offense we're going to see from Greg Roman, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But besides Greg Roman, he also brought in Shane Day as the quarterback's coach after spending 2023 with the Houston Texans as a senior offensive assistant. He was the one who helped CJ Stroud win Offensive Rookie of the Year, right? So the reason why Shane Day was brought back also was that he was the Chargers passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach from 2021 to 2022. And that's when Justin Herbert was his best year. like his rookie year was his best year, getting to a Pro Bowl selection after setting single season franchise records in completions, in passing yards, and passing touchdowns, and games with 300 plus passing yards. So Shane Day coming back is a boon for Justin Herbert. And according to some reports, Justin Herbert wanted Shane Day. And basically what had happened is Jim Harbaugh was basically asking Justin Herbert, hey, who do you want? Right. So Justin Herbert basically said, look, I want Shane Day, regardless of what you do there. I want him as my QB coach. So they got him. They also got Navarro Bowman. I'm pretty sure you've heard of him, Rakshak. Navarro Bowman,
Navarro
linebacker,
Bowman.
legendary linebacker for for the Niners, and I believe with the Raiders as well. He is now going to be their linebackers coach.
Mhm.
So as you can see, they've brought in a lot of, Jim Harbaugh has brought in staff members who are either pro player or, really, really good at their coaching uh, status. He also brought in Jesse Minter, who's now going to be their new DC. So Jesse Minter is going to come in from obviously Michigan. So yeah, a lot of a mix of experience in terms of their coaching staff. And not only did they change their coaching staff, they also completely overhauled their front office as well.
Oh yeah.
They let go of Tom Telesco, and they brought in Joe Ortiz from Baltimore. So it's basically like bringing in the Ravens. That's what they did. They brought in two Ravens players, J.K. Dobbins and Gus the Bus. They brought in the Harbaugh name, which has been 49ers and Ravens. They brought in Greg Roman, another Raven. They brought in Joe Ortiz, now from the Ravens front office tree. So a lot of moves from Dean Spanos that I think are going to be very positive for this franchise. And that's what they needed. They needed a cultural reset after the boring Brandon Staley experiment, right? He was the antithesis to a culture. He was, the definition of homogeneity, right? He
No,
didn't provide any sort of explosiveness or any sort of a winning culture.
the culture is pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a meme by
Exactly.
Bruce Allen, who used to be the Washington Commanders, aka Redskins' former president.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So from a cultural standpoint, from a football cultural standpoint, Jim Harbaugh is a really good hire. They brought in all the right pieces. And then if you look in the draft, I think this was a really, really good draft for them. They got Joe Alt, um, the behemoth known as Joe Alt from
Notre Dame, man.
from Notre Dame. Massive dude, 6'8", 322 pounds. He's clearly the number one tackle in the draft by a long shot. And this was a loaded tackle draft.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, 21 years old, that too. So very young. He is going to be their starting left tackle for the foreseeable future. And another really good wide receiver, another really good selection for them, Lad McConkey, who I thought was going to be there for.
That's a steal. That is
Exactly.
a steal because
In the
I
second round, second pick, I thought he was going to go to the 49ers because,
oh my god,
right,
yeah.
they selected Ricky Pearsall. So I thought, why go Ricky Pearsall when you got Lad McConkey? He's basically the better version of him. So the Chargers got him, and that was as Rakshak said, a steal because he's not going to be their wide receiver number one. Make no mistake about it. Lad McConkey is going to be their number one wide receiver. He is going to be fed so many targets. He's
Right.
going to be a steal in fantasy. He will be a steal in fantasy. So
But
definitely pick him up.
the yak ability and him trying not to get tackled.
Exactly. He's just going to get you like 7 points on the entire every game because of how many receptions he's going to get.
Mr. Consistency, that's pretty much what it is. And what I can imagine is if I'm the Chargers, go 2 tight end personnel, man. And how you put Vlad McConkey in that like I'm using air quotes here in that tight end position. Lord have mercy.
Or like in the slot. That would be the perfect position for him.
Oh, as a matter of fact, in Michigan, when he was in Georgia, his best, the most area of production for him has been in the slot position.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes.
I mean, good luck. I could say those that are trying to get him down, good luck. I wish he had nothing but the best.
Mm-hmm. To me, I think he's going to have a similar role as Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Lions.
Oh,
so,
you know where I'm going to go with this.
Yeah.
So how much I love watching Amon-Ra St. Brown run routes.
Yes, sir.
Me, as a wide receiver guy, I love route. What I really look for is route running, and of course, and football IQ as well. Being aware of what defensive scheme you're attacking, being aware of your routes, being aware of who the quarterback is looking at.
Yeah,
being aware of your position matchups. And man, Vlad McConkey, I love this pick for the Chargers, man. They didn't charger this one.
Yes, sir. They did not charger this one. And that's the story of this offseason. They didn't charger it. They got Junior Colson. He's going to be their Mike linebacker now from Michigan in the draft in the 3rd round. And that's why they got rid of that entire linebacking core that they had before, right? So that you now have Denzel Perryman, Junior Colson, Troy Dye, now as their linebackers, Deion Henley. It's a good linebacking core. There's definitely a lot of holes there. It's not strong. The secondary is decent. You got Asante Samuel Jr. now, Christian Fulton, Derwin James, Alohi Gilman. Like, it's good. In terms of pass rush, you got an injured Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack still there. But their interior, you got Morgan Fox, excuse me, from previously from Denver. So he's going to be their, main guy in terms of interior pressure. And Puna Ford and Otito Ogbonia. So, yeah, they also got Justin Iboigbe from Alabama, D tackle in the 4th round. Tarib Still corner, Cam Hart corner in the 5th round, and Kamani Vidal, the running back from Troy University in the 6th round, and Brendan Rice, the famous Jerry Rice's son.
No, my bad. Say that again, loud and proud for the folks. I interrupted you. My bad.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, and then they also got Cornelius Johnson in the 7th round.
But what about Brendan Rice? Tell to the folks.
The son of Jerry Rice.
And Jerry Rice, Hall of Famer, multiple times Super Bowl champion, one of the greatest wide receivers ever. I mean, his battles with Deion Sanders, man, you wanted good battles between wide receivers and defensive backs. That was it. And Jerry Rice almost ended winning up because he was so damn talented.
Definition. Unfortunately, his son is, not living up to that same expectation. We'll see. Brandon Rice is like fourth, fifth in the depth chart now. Right next to DJ Chark. Joshua Palmer is going to be their wide receiver number 2. Lad McConkey obviously as their number 1 receiver. So overall expectation for me, it's a completely new system on both offense and defense. Right, it's not going to be the way that it has been before. A base 3-4 defense from the defensive side, but it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to be like from a defensive standpoint because it is a college college defensive coordinator coming into his first scenario. So it might be kind of like Mike McDonald. I'm not sure. It's from like the same tree. It's from the same like Rex Ryan, Jim or John Harbaugh, like that tree of defensive coordinators. So yeah, it's going to be good for them. Though they have a lot of holes. They don't really have a lot of defensive talent. Their offense, I think, is going to be a much more balanced offense under Greg Roman in terms of their run pass splits and leaning a little bit more to the run since they have a lack of proper pass rushers, but pass catchers. But I think it's going to be a lot like the 2022 Ravens where they had a 54-45% split in terms of pass versus run. So I think this offense can be in the top 15 just purely based on efficiency. They won't be the most explosive, right? They're not going to have like a top 10 EPA per play type of an offense because they just don't have they don't have the talent for that. And B, Greg Roman is not going to create that sort of a scheme. So it's going to be an efficient game, but I think they can be a 10-win team, 10-7, and they make the wild card spot, but only because I believe in Jim Harbaugh and his ability to coach good winning teams. They just don't have the roster. They need 1 to 2 more years of full free agency, trades, drafts, just to rebuild that roster because Tom Telesco did a fantastic job of putting together one of the least effective rosters on the entire planet. So, yeah.
What a shame.
Good job, Tom Telesco. Yeah, so that's what I think. And for me, their Shandar Player of the Year is going to be Justin Herbert. He's going to get back to his ways of, manufacturing great plays. I don't think he's going to be in any awards conversations purely because the scheme is not going to present him with a lot of opportunities, but he's going to be the classic Justin Herbert that we wanted to see from his rookie year, from his Pro Bowl year that he had. So yeah, that's it for me from the Chargers. This year is not the year for them to make the play. This year is not the year for them to be contending. That's going to be next year.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have to get to Brandon Perna. Give a shout out to Good Sports.
Shout out to That's Good Sports.
In the words of Brandon Perna, the Denver Broncos was the. Can you give me a count? Just count with your fingers. There's 2023 season was the new worst season.
Yep. Yeah.
I lost count because it was
not much you can say. Not much you can say.
It was 8 seasons without a return to the postseason since the Super Bowl year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you started 1-5. We all know about that game where Miami just torched them. 70 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
I got breaking news for you. Breaking
Oh,
Dhamakadar
whoa, whoa,
news.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, what's up? What's up?
Alrighty. So we know that Rasheed Rice, the one who had that 8 pending felony charges for his street racing incident this past offseason,
Yes.
most likely will not be suspended.
What?
Yeah.
That is stupid.
So basically they're basically saying, okay, Taylor Swift makes us so much money, we can't afford to have a loss of revenue with Rasheed Rice not playing there. So he's going to get a free ride. He's going to get a free ride.
Uh,
That's just
okay,
fantastic.
that's Kachara news anyway.
That is Katsudon news.
Yeah, but back to the Broncos. They started 1-5. They one game which it was that 70 they gave up 70 points
Mm-hmm.
to the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
And then after losing to Kansas City in week 6 on Thursday, they actually go 6-5. They beat 4 playoff caliber teams, including the Chiefs. And I mean, it included the Chiefs, the Browns, the Bills, and your Packers. And they only gave up 80 points in total in these games.
Mm-hmm.
So they end up going 8-9. And I mean, overall, it looked very bad in pivotal late game situations. And of course, we have to talk about the man, the myth, and the legend that is Russell Wilson. Nope. He's not here yet.
Nope, he's not there. He's not there. Don't you fall into that trap.
But I gotta talk some stats, man. The Broncos, I don't know, they did have like a close to mid-level season, but they were 24 in total ranked DVOA with negative 11.9. It was a two spot improvement from last year, which they were 20 from previous season, which was 26th overall in DVOA.
Mm-hmm.
And with that offensive side, they were 19th with negative 1.6, but defense, they were ranked 30th. So I think it was like until very late when they realized, oh, we actually have a defense, and let's try and make the best of it. I mean, it was really bad that they did not have a 1,000-yard receiver, 1,000-yard receiver for that season. Cortland Sutton was the number one target, 772 yards. Jerry Jeudy being in second, and you have Samaje Perine running back having the third most. Marvin Mims and and Ben Johnson and Brandon Johnson, who we never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, like, there was a lot of changes. They literally had to look in the mirror and say, okay, we need to change everything. And of course, Russell Wilson was very frustrating with the Russell Wilson and Sean Payton thing. Everyone was talking about, like, oh my God, it's the best thing since the second coming of Christ.
Mm-mm.
But apparently not. It didn't work. It was a fake.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of spring cleaning. And with that being said, I will only go through some, not all, of the players that they're able to get and release. Because, I mean, some of the big names that they got was like Brandon Joseph, 3-year, $20 million deal from the Miami Dolphins. They got another good backup wide receiver in Josh Reynolds, who could be a 3 or 4. Basically for depth, 2-year, $9 million. Will Lutz, they re-signed him. Another one, Cody Barton, linebacker, so that provides some depth for a 1-year deal. And who else? They had Levy Wallace from the Steelers, so for another mini 1-year deal. And I mean, not that much. from what I'm seeing. And they did make some extensions, especially with Quinn Myers, guard, 4 years, 72 million, rightfully needed. John Franklin Meyer, Quinn Miners, that
Mhm.
was the guard. John Franklin Myers, defensive end, 15 million, just to name a few. Tim Patrick had a $1.3 million 1-year extension. But the big ones I thought was very important was restructuring Cortland Sutton's contract, because he's technically now the number one wide receiver. I'll get to that. Zach Allen converted defensive end. He converted a 14.125 million of his 2024 salary into a signing bonus, adding 2 void years, clearing 11.3 million of cap space. And he did also some restructuring with Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers, which I will not get into the details because it's kind of, I mean, all it was cap space, but some good numbers too. And they did let go of some players. They actually traded some players. They received Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's back,
Dang.
baby.
He's back.
Yep. And for along with a 7th round pick for a 2024 6th round pick. And Denver and Seattle had a couple of multiple trade backs for draft picks. But some of the players that were out, Rashard Lewis, Philip Dorsett, Chris Martin, and of course, the biggest free agent right now in the safety class is Justin Simmons. He is right now looking at like a $14 or $15 million contract, but oh my goodness, it is bad. So as we go through that, we have to look at some of the coaching changes. So with this, there were some that it was very interesting to see that that a lot of the staff under Sean Payton was retained. For example, I mean, yeah, we did see Marcus Dixon being replaced by Jamar Cain, and a little bit about, okay. So there were actually some people that were let go. Was Lloyd Cushenberry who signed with the Titans, Jonathan Harris of the Dolphins, Fabian Moreau with the Vikings, Mike Purcell, just to name a few. But like if you're looking at coaching changes, the new defensive line coach replacing Marcus Dixon is Jamar Cain. He is who is now the new defensive line coach. He was actually the pass rush specialist last year, and notably, in 2022, he was the LSU defensive line coach, and and when he was in OU, he was the outside linebacker defensive end coach. So so I think with this, he actually joins Vance Joseph's staff, who is still the defensive coordinator there. So I think that's really good to see. And another familiar name that they brought is Jim Leonard, replacing Christian Parker. Jim Leonard, for those that don't know, he used to be a Denver Bronco in 2012, but he's been more of the journeyman guy around. He used to, so back then, like he was a walk-on player from University of Wisconsin, and he was known. He basically and his coaching career started as a quarterback, but I think he moved more into the defensive role. And with this, he is developed more into the defensive backs coach, starting in college, especially at Wisconsin, and then in Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, where he was a senior football analyst. So now he's now joined the Broncos as a defensive backs coach or pass game coordinator. So he adds more into the Vance Joseph, works well in that Vance Joseph area, that part. And then last but not least, you see, that was Jim Leonard I was talking about. And then we see a familiar face, Anant. His name is Mr. Pete Carmichael. You remember him?
The legendary Pete Carmichael, known for that famous Saints offense, right?
Yep, Pete Carmichael Jr. And with that, Carmichael, he has worked with with Peyton from 2006 to 2021. He served
Mhm.
as that offensive coordinator from 2009 through last season before being fired. And I and and with this, we could see Pete and for those that are still kind of curious about what Pete Carmichael will do, he was the guy that helped with the development of Drew Brees and as a quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator, leading them to their initial Super Bowl. So basically, you're seeing the more round version of what we call the Sean Payton system. They're thinking, and in order for the Sean Payton system to work, they need to get some draft players. And guess who they got? Anand, are you ready?
Go
Are you
ahead.
ready? Their first pick was getting Bo Nix.
Legend.
QB
Legend.
from Oregon.
Already Broncos Hall of Fame.
I think this was a very good pick. I mean, he was like one of the very few quarterbacks that had to be taken. I mean, if I were to be honest, he does have a cannon for an arm. He can make the deep plays. He's from the same. He was part of Auburn before he went to Oregon, along with the fellow alumni Justin Herbert. So we might see Bo Nix versus Justin Herbert in some games. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then with that, he was a 2023 Heisman Trophy finalist. And speaking of his, and he nearly led the Ducks to a Pac-12 championship before losing to Michael Penix Jr. And I think like with him, he's a good dual threat QB. Just needs to work a little bit more on his mechanics, especially with QB playmaking ability. But so far, I think that was a good pick. They had to go with a quarterback because you cannot rely on Zach Wilson as a starter after him being a bust. And with that, we move on. Third round, they were able to get Jonah Ellis after a couple of trade backs with the New Orleans Saints. And then after a trade with the Seattle Seahawks, fourth round, they get Troy Franklin, wide receiver from Oregon, who is Bo Nix's teammate. So Troy Franklin, you're technically not number one because you have to work with Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims. And then in the fifth round they get almost back-to-back picks. The first fifth round pick they get is Chris Abrams, drain corner from Missouri. He actually played 5 games as a wide receiver in his true freshman year before he converted to corner in 2021. In that year, and I think like with this, although he's like 5'11", under 5'12", 179 pounds, he kind of adds more into that corner depth, which will include the likes of Pat Surtain and Damari Mathis, Riley Moss, and Levy Wallace, and Tremont Smith, and Art Green. So it'll be more of those development years. And then Audric Estime, running back from Notre Dame. And also after a couple of trade backs, 7th round, last 2 picks to go with Devon Bailey, wide receiver from Utah, and Nick Carguillo, center from South Carolina. So I want to say it does bring in some values. What they did was reinforce the depth of that offensive line in order to not kill Bo Nix. But what I'm very, very concerned about is that wide receiver depth going to be enough? And those weapons. I mean, yes, Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine are still there. But my question is Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Tim Patrick, and Troy Franklin. Is that really going to be enough? And your tight end, you're going with Adam Troutman and Greg Dulcich. And I mean, and the line looks a little bit better, especially with McGlinchey, Myres, Wattenberger, Ben Powers, and Garrett Coles. But I think with defense, it will be slightly better, but I think Bo Nix is going to be the Shandar Player of the Year. And again, my I mean, it's gonna be a lot of growing pains. I have the Broncos going 4-13 at best. They could try and steal some wins along the season, but it's highly unlikely.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The Broncos, this is not the QB situation for them is not exciting. Yeah, you do have Bo Nix, but it's not like he's a flashy rookie from who's like Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or anything like that. He is known for his steady-handed consistency. So we'll see if he actually gets to that level. Um, but yeah, no, I agree. I think they're just going to steal a couple of wins. Alrighty. Yeah, now let's move on to the third team in this division, and that is the Raiders. So another caveat: I'm unfortunately facing some.
Raider.
Yes, sir. I'm unfortunately facing some technical issues, so I won't be on camera for the rest of this episode. For our YouTube fans, but you guys can still hear me. So for 2023 for the Raiders, wow, that was an eventful season for them. All the Raiders fans, all they wanted was for Josh McDaniels to be gone, and their wish came true. He was fired.
Christmas came early.
It did because he was fired in the middle of the season and correctly replaced by Antonio Pierce as the full head coach after having a half season as the interim coach. Then they went on a mid-season resurgence, beating the Chiefs in the process and putting 63 points on the Chargers, second highest in the entire season last year. And they had a remarkably stingy defense, which allowed them to win a lot of games. And Garoppolo got hurt as well, which, you know, as much as I hate to say this, it was for the good of the team because
Whoa!
he sucked.
Whoa!
He got beat out by Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell. Bro,
No
Jimmy
mercy.
Garoppolo was not good.
Damn.
Unfortunately, he got hurt, but fortunately for the Raiders, it allowed them to at least win 5 games. So they went 5-4 down the stretch with 3 close losses. One, which was versus the Vikings, losing 3-0. And yes, guys, you heard this right. This is an actual legit game with a single-digit field goal being the difference, being the only points scored in the entire game. This loss is literally the epitome of bad offenses facing good defenses. So while they did have these 3 losses and they went 5-4, they ended up being 8-9 on the entire season. It was just enough. Unfortunately for them, they did just enough in the regular season to not be in the position to get a top 10 QB in that, you know, top 10 of the draft class this past year. With rumors coming in saying that they were looking at Jaden Daniels or Michael Penix to trade up with. But unfortunately, none of them were selected. So, yeah, it was unfortunate for them that they did not end up getting, you know, any sort of a starting quarterback from this quarterback-heavy draft class. But the positive news for them this past year was definitely their defense. It was 8th overall in DVOA, 4th versus the pass, 8th against the rush in the entire season. And then in the last 9 games specifically, they were the second best defense in terms of EPA per play, 7th against the pass in terms of dropback EPA, and they had the best defense against the run game. in terms of EPA per play, the number one defense. And the thing is, they got better on the defensive side. They bagged Christian Wilkins, standout top 5 defensive tackle in the league, especially in terms of his run stop ability from Miami. 4-year, $110 million deal. They also brought in Gardner Minshew as a legitimate quarterback battle. For the versus the from the Indianapolis Colts on a 2-year, $25 million deal, which is actually a very good deal if he ends up being the starter versus Aiden O'Connell, which most likely he will be because, again, this is Aiden O'Connell. They also brought in Harrison Bryant, tight end from Cleveland on a 1-year deal, Cody Whitehair, depth guard or center from Chicago, Andrews Pete, a depth right tackle from New Orleans, Alexander Madison, from a depth running back from Minnesota, Michael Gallup, wide receiver from Dallas, who unfortunately did retire, I think, 2 weeks ago. Jalen Guyton, wide receiver from, and 2 wide receivers from the Chargers, Jalen Guyton and Keelan Doss, all on 1-year deals. They did re-sign a couple of their D tackles to 1-year deals as well, and they extended their center, Andre James, to a 3-year, $24 million deal, and Amir Abdullah on a 1-year deal. The problem with the Raiders this offseason was they lost a significant chunk of their good starters. They lost Josh Jacobs, one of the best running backs in the league, to the Green Bay Packers. Bilal Nichols, a really good, defensive edge, like 3-4 edge, 3-4 defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman to the Cardinals. Jermaine Illuminor, starting swing tackle, right tackle to the Giants. Amik Robertson, who actually played pretty well for them down the stretch, to Detroit, corner. Jimmy Garoppolo, he went to the Rams. Not really important. Austin Hooper goes to the Patriots. Jerry Tillery, again, another defensive line depth piece, going to Minnesota. Greg Van Roten, guard depth to the Giants, and a couple of other depth pieces to different teams. So they did lose a significant chunk of their roster of their veteran players, specifically Josh Jacobs, who was quite honestly the engine of their offense last year. Now, that being said, while there were definitely some positive news from last year, specifically in terms of who their coaching and personnel was, right? They did a great job getting rid of Josh McDaniels and keeping Antonio Pierce as their head coach and Patrick Graham as their defensive coordinator. But there are 2 moves that I don't understand. Their offensive coordinator is Luke Getsy. I mean, he was the Packers, offensive assistant who was released by the Packers from Matt LaFleur. And he went to the Bears, did not do a good job of creating a good system for Justin Fields. And now you get him over other potential players. I mean, other potential candidates. I mean, this is such a mid-hire because it's not like Luke Getsy showed flashes of creating a sustained offense, whether it be from play design to play calling. Through any of those stages, he didn't show really that much success. And you get him, that too, with not a good quarterback situation. Like, it's not like you have Patrick Mahomes, so it doesn't matter who your offensive coordinator is, he's going to figure it out. But you have Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. These guys are not meant to run offenses for sustained periods of time without a successful offensive coordinator. So I think this is going to be a significant hindrance for future success for the Raiders. And the other thing, they also brought in Tom Telesco from the Chargers. The guy who created one of the worst rosters in the entire NFL, you bring him? I don't understand that. I mean, from an outside perspective, a couple of what he did was good. He brought in Christian Wilkins. That's a great piece. But the problem with his tenure in the Chargers was um, the problem with Tom Telesco's tenure with the Chargers was he did not create a good uh, level of depth in the entire roster, whether it be the secondary, or whether it be the offensive line, or whether it be the defensive line. He wasn't able to create that consistent depth that could be relied upon if their starters went out on injury. So this kind of a similar thing is happening here now, because when you look at their draft now, yeah, they brought in Brock Bowers and Jackson Powers Johnson. Those were the two best selections that they could make. But after that, they don't really have other starters. Tommy Eichenberg, probably in the 5th round, linebacker from Ohio State. He could probably be your potential starting Mike linebacker, but I mean, the secondary is kind of weak. Jack Jones is a standout corner. He's really, especially when Antonio Pierce was the defensive coordinator in that last 9-game stretch, he really showed out. So I have a lot of faith in the defensive coordinator and in his ability of getting the starting players up to speed and playing really well in a really good system. But the depth is pretty concerning, especially on the offensive side as well. You have Zamir White now as your starting running back, Alexander Madison as your RB2, and Amir Abdullah as your RB3. QB situation is mid. The wide receivers, you got Devontae Adams, fantastic. Then you got Jacoby Myers, who's a good wide receiver too. But after that, you really don't have much depth. Trey Tucker's fine. Jalen Guyton is fine, but it's not some good. It's you don't have good wide receiver 3 and 4, or 4. So yeah, unfortunately, it seems like more of the same. Like, yes, you have Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, so you're probably going to have a lot of 2 tight end sets, specifically with Luke Getsy, because he runs a lot of 2 tight end sets. So for me, when you look at all of the pieces that were brought in, and that were let go of, I don't really see significant success for the Raiders this season, because from an offensive standpoint, you don't have a good starting quarterback. You're not really going to be that successful in the long term. So it's going to be a lot like this past year for the Steelers, right? A mid-season where, the defense is going to end up winning them a few games and getting them ready for a potential offensive overhaul next year, just like the Steelers did this past year. So I think they go 9-8, but they miss the playoffs, as it was last year as well. So I predict Max Crosby as a potential defensive player of the year candidate, as my Shandar player of the year. And yeah, unfortunately, without a good quarterback and a good offensive scheme, I don't see the Raiders winning more than 9 games, because this defense can only do so much, right? When you're losing 3-0, it just shows just how bad of a depth you have in terms of your offense. And I don't think Tom Telesco is the right guy to add great depth, because the mark of a great GM is how successful are your depth pieces, right? When you look at Brett Veach from the Chiefs, you have like 7th round cornerbacks coming in and playing like they're starters, right? that's the way to draft and the way to replenish your team. And unfortunately, Tom Telesco does not have a good record of that with the Chargers. So I'm not sure how he's going to do with the Raiders. His first year, again, okay, right? Starters, fantastic. Christian Wilkins, really good pickup. Gardner Minshew, good pickup. You look at the draft, Brock Bowers, excellent selection specifically for whoever your quarterback is, and Jackson Powers Johnson. Like, this offensive line is good. Colton Miller, unfortunately, is out, but if he is healthy as a left tackle, he's going to be really good. Jackson Powers Johnson, whether he's a center or he's the guard, Dylan Parham and Thayer Munford, right? And then Cody Whitehair. So, like, between this starting six, it is good news for them, and it is a good offensive line, but I don't really see that much success considering the quarterbacking situation. So yeah, that's it for me from the Raiders. Mid-season, but a strong defensive showing. A top 5 defense, I'm going to say, next year. Top 5.
Fair enough. So basically a strong mid.
Yeah, exactly. The Steelers this past year. That's what they're going to be.
Steelers. So it's still confirmed that the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yes. Hands down.
Okay, good. We cannot fight the inevitable. But with that, last but not very least, we got to talk about it, Anand.
Mm-hmm.
We got to talk about it. The new Roman Empire that is coming right before us, that is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Let me know if you heard this before. No offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy. No wide receivers other than Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
Not a problem. They
end up
as
winning the Super Bowl
champions, making our lives miserable, but in a good way by beating the San Francisco 49ers. Mahomes being ridiculous as ever.
Exactly.
And when it matters the most, the defense starts clicking in the playoff season. Steve Spagnuolo goes ultra. Things go bad if he goes ultra.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to talk about ultra, Kansas City was ranked number 5 in DVOA behind Dallas. They were in offensive DVOA. They were ranked number 8 because, and again, it has to deal with the wide receiver depth that they had, and especially with that Tyreek Hill. It was more of a wide receiving by committee, and working with MVS, Mecole Hardman, Rashee Rice, Justin Watson, Noah Gray, Sky Moore, Isaiah Pacheco, Jared McKinnon. I'm talking names other than Travis Kelce. And none of them didn't even reach 1,000 receiving yards. Travis Kelce was like 16 yards short of 1,000 receiving. No, yeah, 16 yards of 1,000 receiving season. But you know what? No problem. As long as you're winning games, as long as you're making to the playoffs, as long as you win a freaking Super Bowl, it doesn't matter because they're inevitable, like Thanos. It's stupid, but it is. And their defense, they were ranked 7th in DVOA. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo will turn up the blitzes. He'll turn up the pressure when it matters the most. He's just playing possum with you. What can you do? What can I do?
Yeah.
Nothing.
He's the greatest coordinator ever. Any coordinator, he is the greatest.
He learned from the very best. God rest in peace, Jim Johnson. He was a Jim Johnson disciple.
Gotcha.
And he was, and by the way, folks, in case you still don't know who Steve Spagnuolo is, he was responsible for leading the Giants twice to that Super Bowl win over those Patriots.
Especially that 2007, the perfect season Patriots. Tom Brady in his prime.
Yeah, just insane, man. Okay. I mean, I don't even want to go over stats because it'll just make us more depressed.
Yeah.
Pat
He is
Mahomes,
what, like a 5-time Super Bowl champion now? 2 with the Giants, 3
three
with
with
the Chiefs.
no. I think because 2000, yeah, the first time with the Chiefs, second
One of
time
the
Chiefs against the Eagles, third time, yeah, 5 times Super Bowl. What the hell?
Yeah.
This is what he does to us.
Okay, so 4-time Super Bowl champion.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, okay, yeah, correction on that. So with that being said, let's just I'm going to bypass the stats because we all know what the hell happened.
Mhm.
Because it doesn't matter. Stats don't mean a thing unless you win the big I mean, if you win the big one. It doesn't mean a thing until you win the ring. So with that, the Chiefs had some signings and players that they let go. Number one, they were able to bring back punt. They brought the punt god Matt Ariza.
Mhm.
I haven't looked at contract. I'm probably not going to go through contract details. They did sign a Marquise Hollywood Brown for another 1-year deal, for probably a 1-year deal. But we did hear that he was in the hospital after suffering like a head injury, but he's back. But I mean, he's probably going to be inactive for a while. They also got Tyrese Gillespie, safety from the practice squad. And they brought Irv Smith Jr., tight end from the Bengals, and Carson Wentz. The legend that is Carson Wentz.
Mhm.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. But outside of that, we got to talk about some of the departures. And with that, some of the players that they lost, Nick Allegretti, we talked about him guard in the guard position. He's now with the Commanders. They brought Blake Bell, an unrestricted free agent. Mike Edwards, safety from the Bills. That's very interesting. Definitely helps out with these defensive back depth. Jody Fortson, tight end from the Dolphins, probably depth. Blaine Gabbert, Willie Gay, linebacker from the Saints. That's definitely a strong pickup on that defensive back. No, on the linebacking front. I mean, you pair him up with Drew Tranquil, Nick Bolton, and Leo Chanel. Oh my goodness.
They just keep getting better, specifically on the defensive side. Like, what more do we want? And now Rashee Rice, the whole situation with that, bro, this is just, come on, man.
Oh no. Willie Gay is left to the Saints. Never mind. Correction. Willie Gay left to the Saints. Then Richie James was released. Jerick McKinnon, Donovan Smith, tackle. They're all been released. Tommy Townsend, punter, he signs with the Houston Texans. And of course, they re-signed Harrison Butker, who made some very controversial statements. And Marquise Valdes-Scantling, who's now with the Bills. And of course, Prince Tega Winogo, tackle. So nothing new. And we have to talk about the trade. They traded the Tennessee Titans with L'Jarius Sneed, a 7th-round selection of the 2024 draft. In return, they got some draft compensation, a 7th round in the 2024 draft, and a 3rd round in the 2025 draft. That's what they gave up. No, that's what they received in order to give up L'Jarius Sneed and a 7th-round pick. So what did they do in the draft? Anand, I need you to play like it's gonna be all right. Be that optimism guy for me.
Mhm.
Because the first pick, what do? The Bills committed draft seppuku by trading with the Chiefs. The Bills traded 28, 133, and 248 for 32, 95, and 221. And the Chiefs, they steal Xavier Worthy, wide receiver from UT, aka the guy who broke the 40-yard dash record in the combine.
Bro,
They can't keep getting away with this.
Can't keep getting away with this.
They
It is
can't
that
keep
mean.
getting away with this. Why must we suffer?
Mhm.
And then second round pick, they get Kingsley Suamataya,
Mm-hmm.
offensive tackle from BYU. Definitely a great line depth.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third round pick, they traded with Buffalo, probably for shits and giggles, as part of that compensation to get freaking Xavier Worthy. Good lord. And then tight end, just to help out Travis Kelsey, they get Jared Wiley, tight end for in the fourth round from TCU. They get Jaden Hicks, safety from Washington State. He's undersized, but he's a good. He's definitely for Washington State. I know he's played a lot of. He was a good. He definitely was a good starter. Play a little bit of that box role, and then they added a center from Penn State, Hunter Norzad, and then after multiple trades, they get a sixth round. They get Kamal Hayden's corner from Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And seventh round, they go CJ Hansen, offensive guard from Holy Cross. Regardless of which, none of it's going to matter. I mean, what more can I talk about, man? What can I freaking talk about the Chiefs? Tell me.
There's not much to talk about. They are the clear Super Bowl favorites this year for a reason.
Yeah. And they're doing so well with Matt freaking Nagy.
Mm-hmm.
That says a lot.
Yeah. It's look, the offensive coordinator position for the Chiefs is probably the most value-less position in the entire NFL because you have Patrick Mahomes, probably one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, and you have Andy Reid, one of the greatest head coaches ever, and offensive play designers and play callers ever. What use is the offensive coordinator other than saying like, hey, maybe it would be cool if we were to try this scheme or that play or whatever, right? It's not like he's play calling. It's not like he's is probably helping minorly in the play design, and especially if all the players get a say in a couple of plays as well. There's no use for this offensive coordinator position.
Basically, all you need is, you know what I imagine being an offensive coordinator for the Chiefs is. Hear me out.
Yeah.
Practice. Get a freaking lawn chair, lie down, have a Mai Tai, and say, oh, I like this play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's pretty much a day in life. But with
Mm-hmm.
Matt Nagy, it's a different story. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And I'm very shocked to see that Todd Pinkston of all people has a freaking job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for those that don't know my frustration with Todd Pinkston, me being a longtime Eagles guy, I've seen Todd Pinkston play for the Eagles. Although he was great in college, he could not catch the freaking ball when it mattered the most. That's why the Eagles went to get Terrell Owens. We made a Super Bowl run and it didn't work out, and he's been garbage. Luckily, he became a wide receiver coach, and now he's
Mm-hmm.
Todd freaking Pinkston, aka Todd Stingston. But I mean, what more can you say? Like, the Hunt family has it strong,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a great general manager in Brett Veach. And I mean, and if you want to talk about seasonal things, I'll make it very short. Easily a playoff team. They'll struggle a little bit because they got some new talent that they're going to try and fix in. They don't want to reveal too much of their hand, but this is what they do. They'll stop the league as usual. Do we need to go any further, Anand?
Mm-hmm.
And most likely they'll go 12-5 at worst. I think they can win some of their big games against some toss-up games. They'll throw a game against the Raiders because they'll probably clinch playoff his berth. They could, I mean, the Ravens, Bengals, it could go either way based on QB healthy, based on the quarterbacks being healthy and the weapons being available. Browns and Bills, that'll be very fun to see. But they go 12-5, AFC Championship game, Super Bowl. You're gonna see a three-peat. They're not denied. You cannot deny them.
Mm-hmm.
They're inevitable. And And I think this is like the shortest one I've ever done for me. But Shardar Play of the Year, I'm gonna go with Xavier Worthy. I want to see how that guy. And you know what? I would like to do a beat the doll moment. The
Okay.
deep passes for Patrick Mahomes to Xavier Worthy for some touchdown bombs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say 10.
Dang. Okay. Okay. 10 deep. What is it?
10 deep touchdown passes.
Okay. Okay.
Not a 10-yard hitch, which turns into a fat foot race.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
bomb. Like
Yeah.
Mahomes can fling it.
Like air yards worthy.
Yeah. Basically, literal air raid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Yeah. There's not much to talk about. Um. Yeah, there's not much to talk about here for the Chiefs. They're clearly going to win the division. So let's talk about our, predictions, right? They're clearly going to win the division. There's no guarantee. There's absolutely every guarantee that they're going to win this division. I predict them going 12-4. Or sorry, 12-5. Just because they have a pretty stingy, like a pretty decent schedule that they have to face. Right? You got to look. They face the Ravens, the Bengals, the Niners, the Raiders, even division rival. They face the Bills. They face potentially they do face the Browns. They also face the Texans. So they have a pretty a sizable, you know, sorry, a pretty significant amount of difficult teams. But again, they're the Chiefs. They'll figure it out. I think they go 12-5. They get to the divisional playoff, and for me, this is just my hope. This is just my naivete showing here. I think the Jets are going to beat them in the divisional round, and the Jets will proceed further. The Chiefs, they have lost in the divisional round before, 2021. Actually, that was a championship game. Uh, so maybe they get to the championship game and they lose to the Texans. But as you can hear from my voice, it is a significant amount of trepidation that I have regarding the just the sad fact, the sad reality that we have to face. The Chiefs are just too good. They're too good, and they can't be beaten.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also predict the Chargers go 10-7. They make the wild card spot, but they lose. Raiders 9-8, and then Broncos 3-14. I don't really see them winning more than 4 games, 3 games. They're just not good enough. They need like 2 years in this rebuild cycle.
Right. For me, I have the Chiefs easily going 12-5 at worst. They could literally go 13-4 or go perfect. And then I have the Raiders coming in around. I mean, it was very interesting. They could go 12-5 in best.
What?
At best.
With no quarterback.
Defense alone.
Defense wins them 12 games?
No, and also the injuries like other teams are facing up against. Taking into that account, they could go 12-5 at best.
You have a lot of hope.
But the only thing I could really see them is going 9-8. They really go 9-8 because it'll really take a it's gonna take a mammoth mammoth of a task to get above 10 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Chargers, unfortunately, with Justin Herbert and the new coaching staff, they'll probably have growing pains. They'll go 6-11 at best. Hear me out, because it's a new scheme for Justin Herbert. And of course, injuries coming into play. We don't know how healthy Justin Herbert is with that finger. And then the Broncos, they go 4-13, man. They're bottom last.
Yeah.
Bo Nix is gonna be in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Yeah, so that's gonna be it for us. So if you guys have enjoyed, please leave us a review at one of the 4 podcast platforms that we host podcasts on: Apple, Google, Spotify, and Pocket Cast, or send us an email at nflmasala@gmail.com, spelled as NFL MASALA @gmail.com. Or Dakshak.
They can also find us on our Instagram page, which is at NFL MASALA 2022. Same as our Twitter /X X account, which is at NFL MASALA 2022. Also, we're on YouTube as well.
Yes, sir. Follow us, like, share, subscribe. We are also there on YouTube at NFL Masala. So see us there. And we're going to hit you guys with our signature outro. Go, Pack, go.
And fly, Eagles, fly. Take care and have a good night.